The path to the Labour leadership is well trodden by Andy Burnham, with 2 unsuccessful attempts already under his belt. In the 2010 contest, he finished 4th, Ed Miliband the winner.
Andy Burnham, as the candidate with lowest percentage, is therefore eliminated.
Jeremy Corbyn elected as leader of the Labour Party.
In 2015, he came a distant second to Jeremy Corbyn. A decade on, Mr Burnham appears to think it could be third time lucky, using a series of interviews to suggest he is very much up for it, saying Labour MPs are privately urging him to challenge Sir Keir Starmer.
So I was asked a direct question by a journalist and I gave an honest answer. And obviously that's been reported today. MPs were in touch with me. But let me also give an honest explanation of what I said to those MPs. It's not up to me. It's not my decision. That's a matter for you, for the party in Parliament.
In a process that's far from straightforward, first Mr Burnham would need to return to Westminster as an MP. He'd have to find a vacant seat and then win a by-election there, which would no doubt be keenly contested by Reform UK. Next, he'd need the support of 20% of the Parliamentary Labour Party, or 80 fellow MPs, to trigger a leadership contest where he'd have to get the backing of Labour Party members and affiliates to replace Sir Keir Starmer. The Prime Minister's cabinet colleagues appear to be rallying round their boss.
Well, Andy Burnham's doing a fantastic job as the Mayor of Greater Manchester. Andy's committed to staying in post until 2028. That's fantastic because he's doing such a great job.
As for the Prime Minister...
Are you feeling threatened?
Well, I'm not going to get drawn into commenting on the Mayor's personal ambitions, but I do want to be really clear about our fiscal rules because economic stability is the foundational stone of this government. It was 3 years this week ago that Liz Truss shows what happens if you abandon fiscal rules.
That's seemingly a coded attack on Andy Burnham's borrowing proposals. The Prime Minister's expected to make a big announcement of his own tomorrow, digital ID cards for all adults in the UK, as part of attempts to tackle illegal migration. It'll be the movements of these two at Labour's party conference starting this weekend that might attract the most attention. Many believe the man dubbed the King of the North is now eyeing up the Prime Minister's throne.
Well, the government has also been wrestling today with whether to step in to help Jaguar Land Rover suppliers, weeks after a cyber attack halted production at the car maker. JLR says parts of its IT systems are now back online amid a phased restart of its operations, but there are warnings some small suppliers could collapse without urgent financial support. Well, our economics correspondent Heliot Ebrahimi is here. Heliot, let's just start with the Burnham manoeuvres first. Have the financial markets reacted at all?
Well, Kathy, there aren't many people who take on the bond markets and win. And earlier this morning, Andy Burnham suggested that we should borrow another £40 billion, saying that we shouldn't be in hock to the bond markets. But frankly, if you borrow £2.7 trillion, you sort of are in hock. And as we saw, the Prime Minister trying quickly to, compare it to Liz Truss and the bravado we saw under her and the dangers that could pose for the UK. But the markets are already a bit jittery. One investor I spoke to said sentiment was so fragile that any small thing could catch fire.
So it's not all about Burnham then?
No, I mean, investors are worried about what's going on with the UK and particularly what's going to happen with the budget. The last budget, the Chancellor left herself only £9.9 billion of headroom, and a lot has happened since. Kathy, keep your eye on the gauge coming down here. First, the U-turn on cutting welfare and the winter fuel payments. Then UK borrowing costs have been going on. We just talked about the power of the bond market. Capital Economics thinks, in addition, the government's policies on migration could mean another financial hit.
So already £8 billion in the red there.
Already in the red. But the big problem, Kathy, is that the OBR, that's the fiscal watchdog, is expected to downgrade UK productivity. Now, it sounds technical, but for every 0.1% downgrade, knocks £10 billion off the government's numbers. Now, we're expecting 0.1% or 0.2%. We've given the Chancellor the benefit of the doubt, but we could be £28 billion in the hole. Now, add on top of that all of the chitter-chatter around policy changes, like removing the two-child benefit cap, or indeed slashing VAT on energy bills. And you can see the Chancellor has run out of money a long time ago, which begs the question, how much tax is she going to have to raise in order to fill that gap?
And then when there's this discussion about supporting Jaguar Land Rover suppliers, that's going to put yet more pressure on the finances, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, they're not cutting a break, are they, the government at the moment? They've been working on a solution for Jaguar Land Rover. There was another meeting with suppliers today, and while JLR said today that some services have come back on, suppliers really are looking for financial support from the government. You know, these are companies that have already cut agency staff and are frankly running out of money. And the government has ruled out furlough, but they could look at other schemes borrowed from COVID, like loan and guarantees from the government or payment holidays, or indeed helping them buy components through JLR. The government is stuck between desperately wanting to help JLR but not being able to write a blank cheque.
Indeed. Helia, thanks very much for joining us. Well, in the last hour, I spoke to Labour MP Liam Byrne, who's chair of Parliament's Business and Trade Committee, and I began by asking him if state support for Jaguar Land Rover suppliers was warranted.
It could be if we can't get Tata and JLR to act quickly. So it's clear to us that there is now a cash crisis that's snowballing in JLR's supply chain. We heard from suppliers today tell us that there are smaller firms now, perhaps with a week's cash left on hand. Larger firms may have a fortnight, but lots of firms don't know how they're going to make payroll at the end of the month. So if the production freeze continues, then there really is going to be a severe economic impact on the automotive industry across the West Midlands and the North West.
Why the taxpayer should be on the hook for the hack of a private company or a company that isn't publicly owned, which may or may not have had full insurance.
Ultimately, this was a cybersecurity failure at JLR and Tata. Now, we don't know what was behind it. It could be that there was a state actor behind the organised crime groups that have attacked Jaguar Land Rover. So we don't know the full details yet. But most suppliers right now think that it should be Jaguar Land Rover and Tata that are footing the bill. But ultimately, cash is what is needed, and cash is what is needed in a hurry. And if collectively we fail to get that sorted, then hundreds, if not thousands, of people are going to start losing their jobs over the next month.
Let me ask you about another big story that we're covering today. Keir Starmer said that everybody in the country is going to be issued with digital ID cards to tackle illegal migration. Do you support that plan, and will it actually work?
Yeah, look, I'm a strong supporter of it. I was responsible for ID cards in the last Labour government, and I became absolutely convinced that unless you close down the incentive of illegal working, it's really difficult to stop illegal immigration. People aren't coming to this country because they love the weather. Ultimately, people are coming to this country because we've got a great economy in which to work. But the grey economy in this country is too big, and it's really difficult to police unless you've got some kind of digital ID. There are lots of lessons that we can learn from other countries who are now, frankly, way ahead of us in terms of rolling out this new technology that, frankly, just makes life easier and faster.
You'll know, as the minister responsible in the Blair government, how difficult it was to, well, you didn't get it through. So is there the common support in your view now? Is there the public support for this?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Look, because the world is very different now to when I was doing that job back in 2009. As I say, most of us have got a multiplicity of digital IDs that we find it very difficult to keep track of. Having one that can unlock access to public services much, much faster, and that you can use in the private sector transactions that we all have, whether that is banking or shopping, you name it. It's that much easier. But it does come with the added bonus of actually creating a much cleaner, simpler, cheaper system for employers to check whether people have got the right to work. And ultimately, closing down illegal working is the key to closing down illegal immigration.
Staying with identity, but the identity of your leader. Andy Burnham has said that Labour MPs are urging him to stand for the leadership. Are you one of them, or is he Labour's Liz Truss, as some fear?
Well, look, if memory serves me correctly, Andy was re-elected as Mayor of Manchester just last year. And if I know Andy, I know one thing about him, which is that he's not going to quit and run from a job he loves and a job he's doing an incredible job in. His term isn't up until 2028. And I think, look, when it comes to Labour MPs, we're not the Tories. We've learnt the lesson from changing leaders every 15 minutes.
So your message to Andy Burnham is stick to the day job?
My message to the Labour movement is look at what is going on in the world, look at the task that we set ourselves to at the last election, and this is a time for calm nerves and to put our shoulders behind the leader that delivered that extraordinary Labour victory last year.
But if you look at the latest opinion polls, Andy Burnham would be able to overtake reform. At the moment, you've been languishing behind reform for 5 months.
Look, you can ask the question in any way you like. Ultimately, I think most Labour MPs, I think most people in the Labour movement recognise that Andy's doing a terrific job in Manchester. He's only just been re-elected. He's not going to cut and run on the people of Greater Manchester who have just elected him back to office to serve a full 4-year term. And here in Westminster, where I'm chatting to you from, there's a real sense amongst Labour MPs that this is the time for calm nerves and determination as we push ahead with what is the task we set ourselves to at the last election.